Determine the center and radius of the following circle, and then draw its graph. So in this case, if we had the circle written in a form that's known as center radius form or standard form, which looks like x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared, well, it would be very easy to determine what the center and radius are because we would just have to identify those values. But this equation isn't written in that form. This is what's known as general form of a circle. And to get from general form into center radius form, what we have to do is complete the square. So if we want to get from general form to center radius form, the transformation in between has to be complete the square. And completing the square, it will have to be done in both the x and the y variables. So the easiest thing to do to start with is just group your x variables together, and then group your y variables together, and move your constant to the other side. And that generally will leave a little bit of space inside my parentheses because that allows me to add a term in that completes the square. And that value that you should know is you take the middle term of a quadratic. You just take the coefficient, that is. In this case, that's -4. So then you divide that number by 2. That gives you -2. Then you square it. So you're going to add 4 right here. And also add 4 to this side of the equation to keep things balanced. And what this makes here is called a perfect square trinomial. And a perfect square trinomial is important because it factors very easily. So a perfect square trinomial, in terms of factoring, what we have is something of the form, suppose I'll write it, a squared plus 2ab plus b squared will factor into a plus b quantity squared. So this will factor into a perfect square trinomial. Now, in order to get that to happen, all we have to do is just take half of this number and just write x plus half of that number, quantity squared. All right, moving over to the y variables, this coefficient value here on the y is just 6. If we divide that by 2, that's 3. 3 squared is 9. So then we'll add 9 to both sides of the equation. And this will become y plus 3 quantity squared. And that will be equal to the sum of these constants, which we have -12 plus 4, which would be -8. Then -8 plus 9 gives me a +1. So now I'm in this center radius form, and I can identify those two items very easily. So the center of this circle will be located at +2, -3. Remember, we do take the opposite of those values there. And the radius is the square root of 1, which is just 1. So now I'll graph it. 2, -3. There we are. Radius of 1, so just go 1 unit away from that point in all directions. And then you can draw in your circle from there.